I want to first begin by thanking the Reverend Dr. Henry Fickling and his church committee for inviting me out to this joyous occasion. I also want to thank my family for attending. First, start out with church with my grandmother, Sally Braden, who's been in this church my entire life. I remember going to her pick me up on Saturday morning, thinking I'm going to stay Saturday, getting up early Sunday morning, going to church with her and my grandfather, Garland Braden, the deceased, the late Garland Braden. Oh. That's top 10 things you don't want to happen in your first speech. But I also want to thank my father for being here, also my Aunt Pearl, Uncle Tim, and Aunt Shirley. Amen. Today we honor a mortal man and an immortal dream. During his lifetime, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. sought to create common ground where people from all walks of life can join together and resolve issues to help make us all free. Working alongside people of all ages, races, and backgrounds, Dr. King encouraged all Americans to work together to strengthen communities, reduce poverty, and acknowledge dignity and respect for all. While that important work continues to this day, his dream remains beyond our reach. Certainly gains have been made, but far more needs to be accomplished. Fortunately, hundreds and thousands of Americans dedicate their lives day in and day out to address the barriers that remain standing. But for all of us here in Macon, there is one familiar and immediate and insidious shackle that needs to be broken. At the close of the year 2011, 21 murders, 43 rapes, 375 robberies, and 457 assault charges were reported. Nearly 900 Maconites had become victims of violence. 878 families were torn apart and they're normalized by yet another tragic, senseless act of violence. We need to come together to bring Dr. King back into our lives, our communities, and yes, our playgrounds. Dr. King lived under the constant threat of harm to him and his family. His response was not violence. He rose above violence. His response was to speak the truth, share his dreams, and march towards freedom land. His response was to shine that bright light of truth on the shortcomings and injustices that work to prevent a true and democratic nation for us all. We need to rekindle and strengthen that light. We need to keep marching toward that dream, using faith and hope to sustain our resolve. This great city of ours needs for us to stand together, shoulder to shoulder. Together, we need to work to assure something as simple as the safety of our children on school playgrounds. Together, we need to liberate our neighbors who feel imprisoned in their homes. Our city is not just buildings and parks. Our city is a community of families, a community of families that work hard, that play in the Unionville and Memorial Park, that attend the Northeast Southwest game each year out. Might I add, Southwest, still reigns supreme, but we're not going to get exactly there. We celebrate at the Cherry Blossom Festivals. These are our families. The families limited by poverty, or filled with fear, or scarred with grief, or so very tired of being intimidated by bullies and gangs and violence. These are our families. We need to raise a collective voice and shout a message loud and clear for those to hear, to free our kids from terrorist acts, our neighbors and our family, and most importantly, our cities. No more.
No more.
Not in our neighborhoods, not in our schools, not in our lives. No more. We must enlist community and business leaders to go into our schools and deliver a message of hope, commitment, and responsibility. We must expand our efforts to involve responsible men in the lives of our young boys. We must strive to improve the workforce development efforts and increase the number of skilled workers. We must increase entrepreneurial opportunity and raise the bar on summer jobs for our children here in Macon, Georgia. You might hear or read sensational reports and ask us to believe we cannot reach the land of Dr. King's dreams because we are afraid, because we are thwarted by the mythical law about no snitching. I cannot and I will not accept that our community can be controlled by such a myth. What is a snitch anyhow? What is a snitch, y'all? Are snitches people who are aware of what goes on in their neighborhoods, who know right from wrong? Are snitches people who refuse to hide behind the curtain of lies? Are snitches people who demand accountability for those who try to tear down the good that we all work hard for in our family? Well, if that's the case, then where do I sign up at? And I know it's a lot of you good people in this church and this community want to sign up to the snitch list. We must take a stand. We must send a message, not in my neighborhood, not in my school, not in my life, no more. Last year, 2,600 guns were taken off our streets, the highest number in the last 7 years. In the last 5 years, our police had taken 11,633 guns off the streets of Macon, Georgia, a little city in the center of Georgia with no more than 100,000 people. Think about it. 11,600 guns in 5 years. And each gun was loaded with the potential to create more murders, more shooting victims, more robberies, more suicides, more fear, more grief, and more intimidation. No more! No. There's an answer to this problem, and if we allow more guns in our streets, into our neighborhoods, into our festivals, into our buildings to endanger our children, our families, the answer is to add a more perfectly reasonable and to let people carry concealed weapons. The answer is no more. No more legal guns and criminals to carry them. No more bands of bullies looking for an opportunity to demonstrate their unfeeling ignorance through mob violent vengeance. A bullet killed the dreamer, but we cannot allow a bullet to dump his dream. We must all heal the words of Dr. Martin Luther King and accept nothing less than peace on our streets, as well as peace throughout the world. Dr. King said, the ultimate weakness of violence is that it is descending spiral. The very thing it seeks to destroy, instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence you may murder a liar, but you cannot murder a lie, nor establish the truth. Through violence you may murder the hater, but you do not murder the hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate. So it goes. Returning violence for violence, adding deeper darkness to the night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out what? Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Hate multiplies hate. Violence multiplies violence, and toughness multiplies toughness in a descending spiral of destruction. The chain reaction of evil, hate begetting hate, wars producing wars, must be broken, or we shall be plunged into the dark abyss of annihilation. I am Danny D. Glover, chairman of the Bill County Democratic Party, and I call on you, Mount Vernon Church, every ear listening to me right now. We must call to action. No more violence in our community, no more violence in our streets, no more violence in our city. Thank you for listening.